What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and it looks like the China Evergrande story may have finally hit critical mass. It is now November 11th in Hong Kong, and they have not made payments on their bonds. Therefore, their 30-day grace period is expired, and apparently they are officially in default now. And wait till you see what this German research firm DMSA just did. You ready? Hit it. Thank you for joining me. I'm Jack Gamble, and I'm Nobody Special. And last week I did a video citing this German research firm, DMSA, who has stated that basically Evergrande had already defaulted on their debt and that they hadn't made the payments and that for some reason the press was covering for them, that they had been citing unnamed anonymous sources and that nobody with any actual authority on the subject was willing to put their name in print to support that any of these payments had actually been made. Well, yesterday another payment was due, and it looks like that payment has not been made again. And since we don't have a press that will do any kind of digging or ask any kind of difficult questions on the subject, it seems that this German research firm, DMSA, and Dr. Marco Metzler went around them and did their own research anyway. And they actually put some of their own money on the line. Wait till you see what they did. Now, guys, before we get into that, I have to ask, could you please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell? It really helps me out, and it helps me to keep this channel growing. I would be forever in your debt. Now, with that, let's get into this, and we are going to shrink my big, fat melon of a head to make room for this press release and for Marco Metzler's gigantic brass balls, because you will not believe what they did. First of all, this is a press release from DMSA, which is a German research firm I cannot pronounce. I apologize. I don't get out much. But it says, China Evergrande Group. Evergrande officially defaulted. DMSA is preparing bankruptcy proceedings against Evergrande Group. Reading in, we're going to zoom in a little bit for Mrs. Special here. The China Evergrande Group today again defaulted on interest payments to international investors. DMSA itself is invested in these bonds and has not received any interest payments until today's end of grace period. And not only is it now close of business in Hong Kong, but it is now November 11th in Hong Kong, and they did not pay. So now DMSA is preparing bankruptcy proceedings against Evergrande and calls on all bond investors to join it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. It says, but while the international financial market has so far met the financial turmoil surrounding the teetering giant Evergrande with a remarkable basic confidence, one can also say with remarkable naivete, the U.S. Central Bank, Fed, confirmed our view yesterday, says DMSA senior analyst Dr. Marco Metzler. In its latest stability report, it explicitly pointed out the dangers that a collapse of Evergrande could have for the global financial system. And this is the best part of this story. I love this. In order to be able to file for bankruptcy against the company as a creditor, DMSA itself invested in Evergrande bonds, whose grace period expired today, November 10th. In total, Evergrande would have had to pay $148.13 million in interest on 3 bonds no later than today. But so far, we have not received any interest on our bonds, explains Metzler. He adds, with banks in Hong Kong closing today, it's certain that these bonds have defaulted. And let me just say how impressed I am with the clankety-clank sound of Dr. Marco Metzler's brass balls smacking into each other. This guy was so sick of Western press taking unnamed sources at their word that, oh yeah, Evergrande had made these payments and not asking any questions. Meanwhile, all these banks that are overexposed to Evergrande and to this Chinese junk debt are on CNBC and Bloomberg, all selling their books, convincing unwitting investors, go ahead and buy this stuff. No, it's fine. We're all in, back in on China. The worst is behind us. Finally, DMSA has said enough. They went out with their own money and they bought these bonds knowing they were about to default just so they could prove that these interest payments were not being made. So go ahead, mainstream press, with your anonymous sources, with your people familiar with the subject or knowledgeable individuals who won't put their names in print. Go ahead and run that garbage. Because here we've got a guy who staked his own money, went out and bought those bonds, and he says he hasn't been paid, and now he's taking Evergrande to court for bankruptcy. Now keep in mind, there's something else important going on here. There are cross-default clauses in all of these bonds, which means this latest bond that they have just officially defaulted on affects all of the other offshore bonds also. And we are going to shrink my big fat melon again because here we go. Particularly problematic for Evergrande. All 23 outstanding bonds have a cross-default clause. This means that if a single one of these bonds defaults, all 23 outstanding bonds automatically have default status. DMSA senior analyst Metzler knows. However, this does not automatically result in a bankruptcy for Evergrande Group. To determine bankruptcy, an insolvency petition must be filed with the court. This can be done either by the company itself or by one or more of the company's creditors, and this is precisely what is now planned. Metzler says DMSA is preparing bankruptcy proceedings against Evergrande. We are already holding talks with other investors in this regard. We would be pleased if other investors were to join our action group. For the DMSA expert, it is clear as soon as a court opens insolvency proceedings, Evergrande will also be officially bankrupt, and that is only a matter of days. Wow, I don't know who these guys are at DMSA. I've never met them before. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I would love to buy Dr. Marco Metzler a beer, which coincidentally the CPI report came out today, and alcohol is the one thing in the world that is getting any cheaper right now. So it's a good time to buy Dr. Marco Metzler a beer. Dr. Metzler, outstanding work. Don't let the mainstream press get away with sweeping the story aside. Don't let them give their buddies in the banks time to unload this garbage investments on unsuspecting investors. They went out with their own dough. They put it on the line to prove that Evergrande is not really making these payments. And it turns out they didn't make the payments and that they are now officially in default, even though they haven't come out and said anything, even though the company hasn't made any statements, even though none of the banks that hold this garbage are willing to come out and say it because they're still trying to sell it to you. DMSA went out and they bought it and they proved it for themselves. So we need more research firms like this that are out there holding the feet to the fire of these crooks that are ripping us off. And now the question is, what does this mean for the rest of the world? What does the collapse of the Chinese housing market really mean for the rest of the world? I don't know what that means. We're talking about some very big numbers here, folks. This is a very deflationary event. At the same time, we have this massive inflation problem going on in the West. These are some very big market forces pulling in opposite directions, so I don't know which one is going to win out and what it's going to look like. But this is going to make a mess, all right? There's no way this problem stays isolated to China, all right? HSBC is supposedly the bank that is most exposed to this debt. HSBC is a GSIB. They are the second biggest bank in Europe. And a problem at HSBC can very quickly spread to Deutsche Bank or across the pond to JPM or any of the other banks here in the U.S. So there's more to come on this story, folks. But my hat's off to Dr. Marco Metzler and his brass balls for going out and actually buying these bonds and proving that this happened. This is a big story, and this is not going away. More to come. Folks, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. It really helps me out. I'd be forever in your debt. Until next time, live small and dream big.